Hey everybody, welcome back to your Dawn of Drones. I'm Dawn Zoldi, your host and the CEO of P3 Tech Consulting. We kicked off an incredible month last week with Global Aerial Management Group's CEO Tony Drummond live from Commercial UAV. If you missed that, go back and check it out on demand on DroneLife TV. And if you haven't subscribed to their YouTube channel yet, DroneLife TV, you should. You'll always get notifications on this show through the rest of the year. So we are continuing this month of incredible market use cases, and I'm telling you, wait till you hear from Rob Heber. Rob is from a company called Workhorse Group, and they have EVs, electric vehicle trucks, that they have integrated with a drone for last mile delivery. So when you think about incredible use cases, no better company, no better person to talk about that than Rob. So welcome to the show, Rob.
Thanks so much, Don. It's great to be with you this morning.
Yeah, so Rob was on Clubhouse. We were wandering around the expo floor last week in Vegas. I had my headphones on, and it was a little crazy. But what was so cool, Rob, was I got to see the Horsefly drone in person and really get a good idea of how the integration works with your EV trucks. So before we get to that, let's talk a little bit about you, Rob, to just set the, kind of give a little bit of context. I know you just recently, I believe, retired from the Army, United States Army. So thank you for your service. I got my Wonder Woman shadow box back there from my time in the Air Force.
Thank you as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I see all your paraphernalia back there. Very cool. Can you tell us just a little bit about your background and yourself?
Sure. Yeah. So some of my background is all jam-packed into my, work from home office here just outside of DC. After 25 years, serving our nation's beloved Army, it was a jump off point that was timely for my family and, where I could go in my career. So the utilizing drones really since the war began, the first time I had control of a drone was in early October of 2001.
Oh, wow.
And so that was that was one of the real key blinding flashes of the obvious that drone usage was going to change the way we do everything. From prosecuting war to supporting the military, right? The military is a giant logistics operation with the occasional gunfight, and so it was fascinating to watch what drones could do over the horizon, and that was really eye-opening to me, all the way back, since the beginning of the global war on terrorism. So yeah, I spent 25 years, 17 deployments. If there was a conflict or an emerging conflict, I was lucky enough to be there. Fortunately, no holes in my boat, so pretty excited about that. Spent 11 deployments to Afghanistan, a couple to Iraq, the country Georgia, which kind of usually gets misunderstood, and spent most of 16 through 19 in Ukraine, and really saw drone warfare accelerate there, and we're seeing the reality of that now. When kind of interestingly, when I first met with folks at Workhorse, they had put their Surefly, their octocopter, 2-person octocopter, at the Paris Air Show. And a buddy of mine said, hey, take a look at this thing. And of course, the military applications to me were, very interesting. But as I met with at the time one of the Workhorse professionals, a guy named Tony Fury in Nuremberg, they sent one of their guys to chat with me as I was coming out of Ukraine, and he said, well, we're also a last mile delivery company. Here's what we do. And of course, electronic vehicle logistics was very, very significant in its emerging use cases. And he said, well, we also have these drones that do package delivery. And I was like, I love what you have. And so just a couple of years later, when it was time to get out, through the DoD skills bridge they have now, which is a great program for, departing military retirees. I jumped at the chance to go work with Workhorse, and then accepted a position earlier this year, and it's been fascinating to get involved with it. Looking at last mile delivery, but then looking at the really the market demand signal for drone usage in a variety of market sectors. So from scanning for agriculture to package delivery, and then to what we constantly see nowadays. Some of these emergencies where we have to respond, and where a drone has a great use case. So one of the things we revealed there at the CUAV Commercial UAV Expo was our Halo drone, our humanitarian aid and logistics operations drone.
Yeah, Yeah, go ahead. No, I mean, just
it's just fascinating to take it's just fascinating to take the different use cases of drones, and we made such a robust really keep it simple platform, right? A quadcopter that could that only weighed 22.5 pounds, and that's going to be able to take flight with 10 pounds of payload. That does so many different things, from sensor work to package delivery. 90% of the packages that all of the package delivery companies, you have UPS, DHL, FedEx, all that great stuff. 90% of them are 10 pounds or less, and so that's kind of how we calculated it and what we needed to produce. And then moving forward, that gave us the ability to do sensor work with some of that more robust LiDAR sensors and multispectral sensors, and of course that's given us the ability to push 10 pounds, food, water, shelter type capabilities, sleeping bags, or a life preserver device to somebody who's stranded in in an emergency.
Yeah, Rob, we're gonna get into all those use cases. I want to cut in for a second because I know there's a ton of folks out there, and I just want to remind everybody this is live. Thank you, Ron Katecki. By the way, when Rob, you said you were in the Army, he said yes, like 3 exclamation points, and he's saying drones are the future. So everybody, please jump in the chat. Tell us where you're from. Give Rob some positive encouragement. Ask your questions, because we're really going to get into this. It's going to be amazing. It looks like Ron is from the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Oh, wait a minute, USDA and FEMA. I'm not sure what he's saying. He's giving us a lot of 4-letter acronym federal agencies, but lots of use cases, and we're going to get into all of those. So thanks, Ron. Rob, 11 deployments. That's amazing. You find this company when you're overseas, coming hot out of the Ukraine, and they're showing you all their cool technology, and you have this ability to do the DoD Skills Bridge program. For those that don't know what that is, the Department of Defense, they allow military members to almost like intern, if you will, at a civilian company. And that's exactly what Rob had the opportunity to do at Workhorse. And clearly it's a successful program, because you're looking at their new government representative. The Rob is doing their work in interfacing now on the other side with the government. So clearly a successful program. And it's so cool that you were able to tap into that, Rob. So let's talk about, before we get into the drone, and we're going to obviously very much get into that and all the different market use cases, including and with an emphasis on last mile delivery. Let's talk a little bit about like Workhorse in general, right? So you said you saw this like 2-person giant octocopter thing when you were overseas, but really the company started out with EV trucks. So let's take a second to talk about Workhorse's trucks, because first of all, like you said, they're important for logistics in general, but now they've added this drone aspect for integrated last mile delivery. So if you don't mind, I would love to take a second and talk about the W750, this truck that they have. Tell us a little bit about this EV truck and what is kind of special or unique about it.
Sure. So the W750 is 750 cubic feet. You can get it both in the cab chassis variant, so you can in place whatever you want on the backside of the truck. It's just a cab and chassis. But the 750 was really kind of an interim opportunity to jump into the marketplace. We started off with our C1000 and 1000 cubic foot, and that's the one you've seen with the drone departing from it. So the C1000, and that gives us a tremendous opportunity to reduce cost per mile to the companies that conduct package delivery, but ultimately all those cost savings will ultimately get passed on to the consumer. right? So
Well,
you're
let's talk about, I know, we've got a lot of folks out there that, let's just call them more the drone crowd, maybe advanced air mobility crowd, right? Let's take a second to talk about electric vehicle trucks in general, because you mentioned, kind of the value add, right? The value proposition to them, even without a drone. You're saving money, is that right? If you're employing and using EV trucks, like what are the benefits of that?
Sure. So, the immediate benefit is the cost savings per mile. So, from an internal combustion engine, a lot of the data really drove home the point that you were spending somewhere about $1 per mile for an internal combustion engine, and so that was really the genesis of Workhorse to go, the electric last mile delivery vehicles. You're talking about a 65% reduction in cost per mile, so 35 cents per mile. And again, that's kind of a blinding flash of the obvious to anybody who has a fleet and delivers really anything, whether that be packages or cleaning services, whatever it may be. If you're going the distance to reach your customers, you're going to want to do it as cheaply as possible. When you talk about how many moving parts there are in an EV vehicle, right? There's essentially five: the steering wheel and the wheels because of the hub motors, and there's no motor, there's no transmission, there's no mercury gears, sun gears, that run through the transmission. There's no, there's thousands of parts that are basically eliminated from maintaining on the vehicle, on the shelves, and then the ability to replace those at your local parts store. So it's really there's orders of magnitude in reduction in cost for maintenance, support, and for cost per mile. And again, that's 65 cents difference in cost per mile from internal combustion engine to EV.
Yeah, that's huge. And like you said, even just the time savings, honestly, my retirement gift to myself was to get myself a Tesla Model 3.
Sure.
And yeah, I mean, we had ordered it like 2 years prior. This was at the time when, there was a real backlog. And so as it happened, I retired in like March, and it got delivered like in September that year. Of course, it's Air Force Blue, but I'll tell you, we have solar panels on our roof, and we have the charging station in the garage. And, I haven't been to a gas station or, frankly, a maintenance repair shop since I got the car.
Yeah.
In fact, one time I was in the parking lot at Walmart, and this guy comes up to me. He's got like some Tesla truck, and he's just like, "Hey, I'm actually a maintainer for Tesla. I just got an alert. Your car's right here. It looks like you need a new windshield wiper. Is that okay if I change it for you right now?" I was like, "Is this guy for real?" And he did, right there in the parking lot. I was like, "That's amazing." So, I can't speak more highly enough about electric vehicles. And I know that the value that it brings, including kind of time savings and whatnot. So let's talk about the drone, because Workhorse was doing pretty darn great with the vehicles. I know the company is a publicly traded company because I did my research. And at some point they said, "Hey, let's integrate drones with this thing," and they created the Horsefly drone. So can you tell us a little bit about the Horsefly?
Sure. So the Horsefly, again, was built out of the cost per mile reduction. Really, the onset of this technology and the emergence of some of these great capabilities of octocopters, that we're seeing, move things around all over the world, really became another, key market opportunity for package delivery. And so our Horsefly is a robust octocopter, right? There's a few things that we have as imperatives, for putting the system together. So it's safe, reliable. There's two primary things, right? Because if those things aren't there, the citizenry is unsure about them, and really won't accept them. And the demand signal right now is there's many opportunities for it. So we need to maintain that safe and reliable position at all times. Again, going back to the way it was built, we wanted something that was robust, that could very easily ascend, traverse, and descend, and deliver a package with pinpoint accuracy. You know, that you start to see some of the other companies out there that are dropping them in somebody's backyard. We're not doing that. You know, fast delivery is great, but accuracy is everything. And so, you know, we've got the ability to fly with 10 pounds, 10 miles. And we have, for package delivery specifically, we have our patented integrated winch. And so that winch can descend 10 pounds and then stop it, you know, while it's in motion, and then pull it back up. And then, of course, if for some reason we go to deliver the package on the specific area that we want to deliver to, if for some reason it doesn't come off the winch, and we can bring it all the way back up. And that, you know, that was one big competitive advantage that, you know, just folks weren't integrating into their systems. And so that gives us, again, that safe, reliable, accurate delivery that, you know, we think the market is really going to have the most demand for.
So Rob, we have a short video. I'm thinking, you know, Mike Peel's in our background. He's our Oz for this show. Well, first of all, let's show this. This is how you've integrated into the trucks. Can you explain what we're seeing right now?
Yep. So we've got the truck is ascending out of our patented bowl, which is integrated into our C1000 delivery vehicle.
And that's the C1000 back there?
That's the C1000 right behind the CEO. Yep. That's our CEO, Rick Doubt. He's, you know, legend in the automotive community. So the aircraft is, you know, ascending from the bowl. Once it gets to the altitude that's configured through our own proprietary software, it'll then traverse towards the delivery site. Once it's at the delivery site, of course, it'll go down to the appropriate descend height for delivering by winch. Once it, you know, successfully completes that accurate, safe, reliable delivery, it'll pull the winch back up, and it'll, you know, basically return to home just like most other drone systems do.
Gotcha. I think we can probably kill this clip right now. And although the truck is absolutely beautiful, honestly, and it was really cool. There he goes, flying out again. We've got another clip we're going to show here shortly, but we have some good questions from the audience, Rob. I'd like to hit you up on because this show is really for them. And we've got Robbie Heinrich saying, I understand an FAA approval request for the Horsefly was submitted close to 2 years ago. Do you expect this to happen soon?
Yeah, so really our expectations of time when it's going to happen have accelerated. There was just a type certification that happened while we were out at CUAV, and so now we know there's a concrete path ahead. So there's you know, there's intricacies to the FAA like any other, you know, government agency. And but fortunately for us, you know, we've got, you know, guys who have spent, you know, 40 years working for Southwest and know the FAA intricately, and so we're you know, making positive steps to get the type certification.
Well, and we heard right last week the big announcement, Matternet was the first.
Right. Yep.
So, you know, they kind of cleared the path for others to follow behind, and so the type certification's out there. That's great, Rob. Here's the second question. What was the cost of diesel fuel when the $1 per mile was determined? I would imagine it has only increased since that estimate was generated. This is, again, Robbie Heinrich.
Yeah, so I don't have the data on the cost of diesel fuel when the dollar per mile was determined. That's what we received from the package delivery companies that said that's how they calculate, you know, cost efficiency for delivery. But yes, 100%. You know, has it gone up? Absolutely. I mean, all of us are watching it, you know, daily, sometimes weekly. You know, when we go to fill up our vehicles, you know, whether they be gas or diesel. Diesel has nothing but gone up. Really over the past 20 years. It's still higher than gasoline right now. And again, that's why Workhorse, you know, really decided to, you know, obtain a piece of this market, was to offer, you know, an electric vehicle, last mile delivery vehicle. And then ultimately, once the use case of the drone was becoming more available, that's when they decided to, you know, incorporate that into the vehicle.
Yeah, I just think it's so unique because there obviously are others doing last mile delivery. Right now, I believe like you're one of the only companies that I'm aware of that's actually integrated it in the way in which you have with the bowl we just saw in that video clip. with the electric vehicle truck. I mean, so cool. Chris Wedgeworth, he's one of our super fans, by the way. He's out there and he's asking Rob, what if a hobbyist drone is flying in the area? In other words, we saw, right, the drone pop out of the top of that truck and fly off. What safety mechanisms do you have, or kind of bumpers, if you will, to make sure that there's no conflicts with other drones in the airspace?
Sure. So the detect and avoid capability is what we're integrating right now. That's a tough problem to crack, but we're got some of the best professionals out there to put that all together. One of the key considerations right now, if there is a hobbyist drone in the area, for us personally, conducting Flight 107 operations right now, we've got a very prescribed route. So, that's not technically a problem right now, but we can see as we go forward and get to more autonomy, and you start to see more drone delivery systems in the air, that definitely will be something of concern. But there's thousands of smart individuals out there. They're going to put together appropriate software, the ability to detect a drone with either Bluetooth or whatever communications capability it has on there, and some of that stuff, although complex, can be simplified by some of these great software professionals that can put all this stuff together. So we got trust, faith, and confidence that it won't be an issue.
I'm smiling, Rob, because I just called Chris Wedgeworth my super fan and our super fan. Apparently, you and Horsefly have one, and Robbie Heinrich. He's saying, "Thank you. This is very helpful. I saw the press release from Linamar last week on the E-Axle Production Award starting next summer. Congratulations, production soon." So someone's been closely following what y'all are doing, and that's super cool. We have a really neat video that I would love to show. Again, picture paints 1,000 words, and you're going to walk us through the Horsefly drone and kind of all of its different, kind of components here. So, Mike, if you wouldn't mind rolling the short clip, that would be awesome. So go ahead, Rob. Explain what we're seeing here.
Yeah, so this is right near our factory. That's one of the big things. We just procured a 75,000 square foot factory, and from that flight path. So you're seeing the Horsefly ascend. With in that case, I think that was a 9-pound package we were testing at the time, and our pursuit is 10 pounds. That's what we're going to sell, and we're continuing to test that. So that flight is happening. Within line of sight, and of course, we got the flight time there, with a payload and without a payload, and then here's our proprietary software, our Metron Air, and that's very easy graphic user interface. And then of course, with what we offer specifically is this accurate, safe, reliable, and accurate winch delivery. And so you'll see that happen here in just a second, right? So you're very stable. I'll tell you, after 25 years in the military, and some of the, some of these real, distant locations, you can hear drones, very far away. And one of the real key things we looked at, again, the demand from the citizenry is going to be most important. So we made ours as quiet as possible, and I personally believe that ours is about as quiet as it gets. Especially when you look at the ability to descend from a winch and stay, 50 with a goal of about 100 feet above the property of the delivery location. Then we're talking right there, going back to the 95% reduction in fuel for the cost per mile. We really think that most of the package delivery companies, grocery stores, companies who have things that the citizenry wants every day, food and water, right? So we believe that instead of having their cars drive to locations or delivery vehicles, they're going to find it way more cost efficient to deliver by drone. Most of these places, the grocery stores and other companies, put their locations within 5 miles of 50% of the population, and we see that here in the planned communities that we're surrounded by in the DC area, and we believe that those stores are going to wind up utilizing drones for delivery in the very near term.
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned is it Metron, the Metron User
Metro
Control
Iron.
Center? Can you describe what that is? That you said that's a software?
Yep. So it's developed in-house. It's our own proprietary software. So yeah, it's the intent was to be able to program a route, right? So take it to altitude, traverse to a location, take it to another appropriate altitude for descend with the winch, and all of that is being automated really at this time. So
Wow.
yep. So and I'll tell you, from the geek speak is the GUI, the graphic user interface, right? But from again, somebody's had their hands on drone controllers for quite some time. We kept it simple, right? So what's the point of origin? Hey, this is your launch site. Where's it going to? Drag your icon, move your icon. Very simple. At this point, that's the delivery point. Automatically sets it to that delivery altitude, so they can descend with the winch and do that targeted delivery.
So how is that
With precision.
how does that different, Rob, from your Aries delivery app? The control center actually is control is the delivery app like the customer interface, or how does that work?
No, so Aries was the old system, so we
Yeah.
changed to Metron Air. Um,
Okay, gotcha.
yep, and so yeah, that Metron Air is the all-encompassing delivery app for the software that we have now.
So have you phased out the Aries delivery app, or is some
Yep.
folks like, okay, all right, so Metron Air is the new way to go here. Awesome. So a couple other questions out here. Um, and I know Moog is also, I believe they're an EV company. Is there some kind of relationship going on with Moog? Is a question from the audience, if you can tell us.
Yes. So that was specific to the Surefly. Yep, the relationship's going great. Our president John Graber is one of the chief pilots for that, and yeah, it's there's lots of solid progress.
All right, excellent. And then do you see fixed wing drones in the future of Workhorse?
We do. There's but really more the VTOL, right? So VTOL fixed wing, so that you can ascend kind of from a very small location, and then do that traverse flight a lot faster. We do see that in the future, but the technology really to do that with our octocopters right now is where we're at. There are, of course, some supply chain challenges that everybody's looking at, right?
Yeah.
So I do see that in the future, but the current technology for what we're trying to achieve right now, we're going to achieve, great success with the octocopter.
Can you share with us maybe who some of your partners are that are, working with you on the last mile delivery concept?
Yeah, so we've conducted training flights with UPS. Um, that's kind of the real big thing in package delivery, right? So you saw that in our slideshow presentation there at the commercial UAV
Yes.
Expo. That was kind of the real big focal point for working with the package delivery piece. Yeah, UPS stood up Flight Forward, and they were trying to achieve really that cost per mile savings, and that's really I think probably the biggest customer we were working with for a little bit there. But the reality is we're looking for really anybody who wants to achieve that cost per mile savings, because we know it's out there. We are going through some testing right now with our drones to get it to that type certification through the FAA, and and then look at some of those other market opportunities that are just outside of package delivery.
We're going to talk about some other use cases here in a second, Rob, but before
Yeah.
we transition from this last mile delivery, as a potential customer, do they have to purchase the drone EV combination, or how does that work exactly?
No, so that that's we started to realize that a couple of years ago. There's great opportunities just with Part 107 flights with the drone itself. we know that our patented truck drone integration is really going to take off at some point, but we know that people have market demand right now for package delivery. So we've done a few things with the aircraft, looking at being able to, if instead of landing in a bowl, so we're able to land just on the ground or from a roof of a building. And so we've been able to modify the legs on our aircraft so that we can take larger packages. It's because it's one of the challenges with package delivery, right? This is a kind of a truth throughout package delivery, that you'll volume out before you weigh out, right? So if a truck weighs 4,000 pounds but only has or can carry 4,000 or 5,000 pounds but only has 1,000 cubic feet of space, it'll likely volume out before it weighs out. And I'm sure you've gotten a box of hot local city air, and you're one small item from Amazon. I know I have.
Right.
So that really goes out to that volume. So we changed the structure of our legs, which is really just allowing them to fit a larger package up underneath there, and still move that same weight or volume to the location.
So I guess, there's so many different models, Rob. There's some companies that, if they have a delivery system, they want their own pilots to be doing it. Maybe they contract out with a company, and then it's basically their operation. Others maybe are selling like the kit, if you will, and maybe
Sure.
training then the customer. What kind of model or models with the integrated truck and the Horsefly drone is Workhorse pursuing? Is it your own kind of fleet and your own pilots, if you will, your own, or are you really looking to have enterprise adopt, your technology, you train the trainer, if you will, and then it's over to them?
Yeah, so that's a fantastic question. So I'll start with, we are hiring pilots, right? So we have, if you've got a 107 certification and you've got some experience, we want to see your resume, and you can go straight to the Workhorse website and you can navigate to send your resume in.
Well, here's my question. If I'm a pilot, do I have to live in a certain location to apply, or are you looking for nationwide for pilots?
Yes. So right now we're putting together a really great team in Cincinnati.
Okay.
And we have the ability to go out all over the United States rapidly through aircraft or ground vehicle to conduct whatever UAV operation that we got on our radar.
Right.
But as we go forward, working at distance or away from Ohio is definitely going to be within the realm of the possible, and we will want to be able to do that, because the market opportunities are going to start springing up all across the country with all these advanced air mobility corridors that are standing up throughout the nation. And so we will likely just over the horizon in the near term be looking at how we hire pilots in different locations, and then how we ensure that they're trained to our proficiency levels and standards, and then utilize them wherever those market demand is.
So I'm presuming this, but you can correct me if I'm wrong. So it sounds like you're doing this almost like as a service for companies. So like they would contact Workhorse and say, hey, we have a delivery need. And then you would then source the vehicle, the pilot, the drone, and they would pay you for that service. Is that the model then? Am I getting that correct?
Yeah, right now, being focused on displaying our capability, we have 100% control of our systems at this time.
Yeah,
so we haven't handed them off to just other individuals to fly them. But we will likely get to the ability to sell the drone, sell the software, sell all the computer hardware, and get to where a business can purchase the entire kit and then utilize their own pilots.
Yeah. So what you all are offering is so much more, honestly, than just delivery. So let's pivot for a second, Rob, and talk
Yep.
about some of the other use cases you alluded to. We're going to put the military piece aside because I think there's an incredible, like military use case for the DoD. But I believe you have now incorporated some LiDAR sensors, working with maybe the U.S. Department of Agriculture. I could see where having an electric truck to go out to a particular location and then being able to fly the drone from there for something like precision mapping or LiDAR photogrammetry, whatever, would be super useful. So what do you have going on in that arena?
Sure. And yeah, to your point, currently we are working with the U.S. Department of Agriculture. We got a couple pilot programs going, but you're spot on when it comes to utilizing an electric vehicle. First do no harm almost, right? So when we're going out there to support a farmer, we don't want to bring a smog producing truck out there, right? So utilizing the electric vehicle to be out there and utilize that drone is definitely what we're trying to get to. And yeah, that the LiDAR scanning, for those who don't know, LiDAR scanning provides the ability to really maximize the efficiency of farmlands across the United States, which at the end of the day, it goes back to food and water, right? The what we need as a society, and so the better and more efficient that our farmlands are, obviously the whole nation benefits from that. And there's plenty of places where you can maximize the efficiency of farmland by just incorporating which way the crops are plowed, right? So if and you get those measurement data by using LiDAR. That can help you identify where there's a soil problem using multispectral. LiDAR can help you with engineering measurements to say, hey, put more dirt here, and that'll help water flow more efficiently in a certain direction. And then where we constantly see really across really the eastern portion of the United States, where we constantly get impacted by hurricanes. There's massive erosion when some of these storms come through, or you saw like the floods in Kentucky or Dallas. Like the whole landscape's going to be changed.
Yeah.
So and in some cases, if a bridge falls in Kentucky or Dallas, right, how do you fix that? Well, one of the real quick fixes where you can give precision data to then turn that over to the engineers in that state and
Yep.
say, here's all the measurement data. You rapidly have an ability to fix whatever the problem is. So it's a really great capability. This all started off with the Army Corps of Engineers 4 decades ago, and now we have just like technology evolves, better, faster, more efficient, and a smaller package, and we can give nation state level data to a local farmer and say, here's how to go forward. So that's a really big deal, especially to the average small farm owner that wants to be as efficient as possible.
So Rob, you also mentioned early in the talk today, and I saw this drone on the floor last week, your kind of humanitarian purposes, right? It was painted white with the red cross on it. Tell us about that drone and that use case.
Sure. So that's really, I think probably another modification to make our systems more capable. That that humanitarian aid logistics operation is just offered with a servo at this time. We think that we can offer it with a winch, but when it comes down to emergency type support, if somebody's stranded at a certain location because they fell off a trail while they were out hiking, or if a flood happens, again, Kentucky, Dallas type thing, you can immediately get them, food, water, tourniquets, a space blanket, a sleeping bag, something to help them solve the next, potentially 24 hours so they can survive.
Yeah.
And we see that everywhere, what can it drop? It can drop some of those, the fire retardant type, like baking soda bombs, I think they call them.
Yeah.
But you can, help stop a fire in certain areas if you get, a dozen of these things lined up. So there's just tons of use cases for, a drone that offers, that the ability to push 10 pounds. And some of the testing we've done, we're achieving far past that. with that capability. So we're really excited about what that's going to do because of, the stuff that we're taking off it to keep it as simple as possible and deliver, that just with the servo.
Well, that's incredible, and so much going on there at Workhorse. Do you have any, kind of like what's the next step, right? Like we talked a little bit about the type certification is underway, but are there any like announcements that you can share with us here? I'd love to have first on the Dawn of Drones.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, again, like, kind of our big message, we're hiring, right? All day long.
Yeah.
We've got, a 75,000 square foot facility. Once we get some of this testing completed in the very, very near term, we're going to go into, production. And of course, production from an OEM standpoint is, going to be that hockey stick, right? We know the market has demand for, last mile delivery, efficiency and last mile delivery. We know we can achieve it far better and far more efficiently with a drone. And so we believe that, the market is really going to respond. And we're already seeing it too from, the government. There's, significant influence to go EV. And when you think about the supplies we have, you bought a Tesla, right? So, you're doing your part to, reduce, carbon emissions and all that great stuff. But, a lot of us, that have efficient vehicles are typically working from home now. We're not driving anywhere.
That's true.
And so, and these last mile deliveries are just going up and down our roads, every single day, working all day long.
Yes.
And so, from a, standpoint of, as a nation, what are the things we're doing? Are they the right things? And so everybody, you see it. Everybody has demand for, something to be delivered to their home because in most cases, their time is more valuable than the cost of going to get it done.
Yep.
And so, we believe that the last mile delivery sector is the right place to be investing from the government perspective, and of course from those who have fleets of vehicles. And if you're delivering that 10 pounds type of requirement, then we know that that the drones is the right thing. I think since I've gotten into this, I basically do everything last mile delivery. Right, we get our groceries delivered, we get clothing items delivered, all this great stuff. And so I see it daily on, what we order for our kids, for, cleats for baseball, and all this stuff could be delivered by a drone much faster. And you think about, what my wife's demands are from makeup and shampoo from Ulta just up the street to, cleats for kids. So again, that 75,000 square foot, facility we have is going to, I think, be, buzzing. Like a serious drone hive that's going to produce a lot of capability for wherever the market demands are the most significant, and we're going to deliver. So that's a great thing to be a part of that. From especially as you walk out of the service and you say, oh, what can I do? Oh, wow, I can maximize the efficiency of our nation. That's a great thing for me.
Well, and look, Amazon, whoever, they're going to have their stores, they're going to have maybe warehouses, hubs. But to have the truck be able to go to a location where then the drones can launch from that, like you said, in a 5-mile radius, even if the actual, Walmart or the actual CVS or pick a store, it doesn't really matter, right, is within an area, to be able to have that additional kind of reach, I think, that the EV gives is really, I think, tremendously important. And it is, I think, the wave of the future. So kudos to you and what you're doing. Kudos to Workhorse. You guys had a great show last week. Can we expect to see you at any other upcoming shows if people missed you last week in person?
Sure. Yeah, we're actually doing some internal planning right now, but of course the next AUVSI will be down there for that. Yeah, right. And there's we've got lots on the radar. But we've AUVSI is definitely targeted for next year. And we already got the invite back to CUAV for next year, so that'll be on our radar again. But if it's got a large market audience, we will likely be there for drones.
Well, sweet. And we're ending our time together now, Rob. It went so fast. How can people reach you? How can they find Workhorse?
Sure, you can go to workhorse.com, and of course, if you have any specific questions, you can navigate through the menu there on the website. And of course, if you need to contact me, the Director of Government Programs at rob.heber@workhorse.com.
All right, very good. And any other closing comments before we dial off, Rob?
Yeah, I mean, really, you started to mention, that last, 5 miles where the aircraft can move to. When you look at, we talked about, reduction in fuel costs, reduction in maintenance, but then it goes back to, reduction in vehicle use, right? So it's another big leap ahead. If, you're taking, 5 miles for one package and you do that 20 times a day, that's 100 miles that the truck doesn't have to go. And so again, for folks who are, looking at fleet services, that's a big deal. But yeah, I was going to say thanks so much for the time. And, it's really great, and love to, jump on back again in the near term.
Yeah, that would be awesome. It was so fun. It was so great to meet you in person last week too, and seeing so many people out there last week. And like you, I'm super pumped for AUVSI. Rob, I'm going to be on the road like 3 weeks a month for like the rest of this year. So everybody's going to see me out and about. It's a little bit crazy, but by the way, Mike, if you wouldn't mind, if you haven't done it, drop Rob's Clubhouse link into the chat so people go back and listen to that on demand. The conversation wasn't the same, and it was live from the floor, so we'd love for you to go back and listen to that as well. And speaking of Clubhouse, everybody, tomorrow on our Clubhouse Drone Law Connections, we have the incredible Tani Smith, CEO of TS Aerial Media and recruiting and training manager for Flying Lion. She's going to be talking in large part about the drone as first responder market use case. So check out Tani tomorrow. She'll be on this show next week as our Volatus Above and Beyond series guest. And Rob, thank you so much. Thank you, Workhorse. We are out here. Thank you, everybody, for chiming in the chat. It was awesome today. We are out here. Thanks so much.